We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
On Mark Dolan tonight, in my big opinion, with inflation feared to hit 13%, mortgage costs to explode and a recession that may last for more than a year, the cheerleaders for lockdown who walked us into hell are now complaining about the consequences they caused. They shouldn't still be in TV or radio studios. They should be in hiding. I'm giving it both barrels in my big opinion monologue in 5 minutes' time. Don't miss it. In the big question, should we give up the car to save the planet? We'll hear from all sides on that one. And my Mark Meets guests are the talented singing duo of Emma Quinn, Ireland's last Eurovision winner, and composer Sarah Class, the triple Emmy Award and Brit nominee. Plus, we got the papers at 10:30, a brilliant all-star panel, and in my take at 10, it's another We Feel Your Pain special, in which I reach out to a celebrity that's going through a tough time. Tonight, I'll be dealing with Saint Gary Lineker, who's in hot water over a joke about women's football and bras. He made a boob. Lots to get through, you won't want to miss a second. This show is the home of truth bombs, plenty of which are coming after the headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
I'm Tatiana Sanchez in the GB Newsroom. Archie Battersbee's family has been told his life support will be withdrawn at 10 a.m. tomorrow. It's after his parents lost their bid to challenge the High Court's decision denying his transfer to a hospice. The 12-year-old has been in a coma since April and is being cared for at the Royal London Hospital. His family plans to take the matter back to the European Court of Human Rights. Barts Health NHS Trust says no changes will be made to Archie's care until the outstanding legal issues are resolved. Protesters have been removed from the Tory hustings in Eastbourne after heckling leadership contender Liz Truss.
I think we have some infiltrators, and I will wait until they are evicted.
Shouting "Shame on you," at least 5 people were ejected from the event. It's thought they were from climate group the Green New Deal Rising. During her speech, the Foreign Secretary vowed to clamp down on unfair protests.
I would legislate immediately to make sure that we are standing up to militant trade unions who stop ordinary commuters getting into work. And I would legislate to protect our essential services. And I will make sure that militant activists, such as Extinction Rebellion, are not able to disrupt ordinary people who work hard and do the right thing and go into work.
Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak have been clashing over the economy after the Bank of England warned the UK is facing its longest recession since the financial crisis. The former Chancellor says inflation must be brought under control.
Well, the first thing we need to do in order to make sure we can win that election is have got through this inflation problem by then, right? And that's why I'm particularly worried about policies that risk making it worse and last longer, right? It's as simple as that. We all heard what they said yesterday, all of you saw the numbers, and if we don't get a grip of this thing and get a grip of it fast, then we can kiss goodbye to winning that next election.
The Unite Union has announced nearly 2,000 workers at the port of Felixstowe will strike for 8 days later this month in a dispute over pay. Members will walk out from the 21st of August after they failed to reach a deal with the Felixstowe Dock and Railway Company. It's the biggest and busiest container port in Britain and is thought to handle nearly half of all container trade in the UK. TV online and DAB Plus radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to Mark Dolan tonight.
The brilliant Tatiana Sanchez returns in an hour's time. Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. In the big question, should we give up the car to save the planet? We'll hear from all sides on that one. In the news agenda with my panel, is Rishi Sunak toast after that video? Should neighbours snitch on each other for using a hosepipe? And should there be tougher laws for killer cyclists? Reacting to those stories and many more are my brilliant panel tonight of presenter and award-winning journalist Linda Duberlet. She's making her panel debut tonight. Hi, Linda. Fleet Street's finest, radio and newspaper legend Mike Porky Parry. And model, presenter and TV personality Nicola McLean. Very excited about my Mark Meets guests. They are the talented singing duo of Emma Quinn, Ireland's last Eurovision Song Contest winner, and Sarah Class, who's won 3 Emmys and has been nominated for a Brit. So we're excited about that. Their new single is out now. Plus the papers at 10:30, and in my take at 10, you won't want to miss this. We've got another We Feel Your Pain special in which I reach out to a celebrity that's going through a tough time. Tonight, I'll be dealing with Saint Gary Lineker, who's in hot water over a joke about women's football and bras. What a tit. Yes, we're going for it tonight. You won't want to miss a second, and I want to hear from you throughout the show. Mark at gbnews.uk. The best bit of my show is when you get in touch. And this programme has a golden rule. Do you know what that is? Well, we don't do boring. Not on my watch. I just won't have it. So for the next 2 hours, big debates, big guests, and always big opinions. Let's start with this one. Well done, everyone. Great news, folks. Britain is now in the grip of arguably the worst financial crisis since the Second World War. But how did it happen? The war debt that we accumulated was because German bombs rained over London and other great British cities. Hitler, history's worst monster, was rampaging across Europe, with his territorial ambitions being the United Kingdom next. Fascism threatened our very existence and that of the free world. A pretty solid justification for expanding the national debt, I'm sure you'll agree. So what happened this time round? A few bad flu seasons with a coronavirus not dissimilar to previous respiratory illnesses. The average death toll from which was over 80, which is actually above the age of life expectancy in this country. A nasty virus for sure, and a tragedy for those who we lost. But a bug non-fatal to almost everyone, and yet we shut down the economy for 2 years. We closed schools, we covered people's faces, and borrowed £500 billion. £500 billion. Let that sink in. Here's what it looks like written down. Just look at that number. I've never seen a number like that before. You'll just never get your head around what a colossal figure that is. And wouldn't that money come in handy right now to help people with their energy bills? And to give you a flavour of the sheer madness of it all, and all of it was mad, including paying healthy people to stay at home and closing thousands of once viable businesses, we had the test and trace system, which the cervix-free leader of the opposition, Keir Starmer, was begging for months. It cost £34 billion and it didn't work, because when cases reach a certain level, you can no longer track or contain and isolate a disease like this. No sugar Sherlock. Our disastrously arrogant, under-evaluated, ill-conceived, non-evidence-based attempt to stop a respiratory virus, something never previously attempted in human history, could be forgiven if they had done it for a few weeks. But they did it for 2.5 years. And here we are. Yes, countries around the world also had lockdowns, which has created supply chain issues and therefore inflation. And old Vladimir has not helped with his invasion of Ukraine, which has spiked the cost of grains, cooking oils and energy. But the real smoking gun can be found in Whitehall and the crime of printing hundreds of billions of pounds worth of empty money. I know the world's gone mad and men are women and women are men these days, but even economists have become separated from reality. Thick as pig shit professors and economic so-called experts told me on this programme and on my radio show prior to that this borrowing was cost neutral. They said interest rates were so low it almost paid us to borrow money. The experts, they said the real challenge was to get on top of this virus, and now they're eating their words. Although, be clear, there will be no words of contrition or apology from them. They are unashamed. And now we're faced with so many problems. Unemployment, which has been mercifully low, is now set to jump by over 1 million. That's right, 1 million wrecked lives. Two-digit inflation may be with us for another 12 months. And we're predicted to be in a recession not for a few weeks or a few months, but 1.25 years. The illiberal and frankly communist-style experiment of lockdowns has created the first man-made recession in history, probably in response to a man-made virus. Who knows? A year ago, that sentence would have got you cancelled. Now people seem to silently nod in agreement. 100 brave Tory MPs were the only voices of dissent in the course of this pandemic. Heroes like Steve Baker and Mark Harper, who risked their careers to say this is madness. They should be the ones in competition for the keys to number 10, not Sunak or Truss. Those two sat idly by and nodded this madness through, led by the allegedly freedom-loving Boris Johnson, as they all sat smugly around the cabinet table. That's when they weren't having parties. The British people have had a crime visited upon them and are now waking up to the consequences. We've been attacked, we've been imprisoned, and we've been burgled by a state that has forgotten it's there to serve us. And British children that haven't even been born yet will be landed with the bill. And we could do with some of that $500 billion right now to tackle the cost of living crisis, which is, of course, the cost of lockdown crisis. Let's take another look at how much we borrowed. That's a lot of numbers on there, isn't it? That's a figure so big it will get Carol Vorderman excited. Well, we're now on a countdown to catastrophe. I know it's the other girl now, but it works better with Vorderman. You'll find my record of opposition to this goes back all the way to March 2020. It's all there on Twitter. Take a look. But it's about where we go from here as we face what will be a hellish economic storm that really matters. We must pray for a negotiated peace between Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky. We must tackle the monster of inflation, the stealth tax that hurts us all. We must chop down the magic money tree and get back to living within our means and paying down our debt and stimulating economic output. The ultimate goal must be a low-tax, productive economy that seizes the freedom that Brexit has to offer. We need a lean, mean economy where you can make something of your life and where it pays to work. And we must learn from the seismic mistake of COVID measures, all of which, masks, plastic screens, bubbles, lockdowns, distancing, will be laughed at by future generations. What the hell were they thinking, is what they'll cry. Of course, you'll hear about new variants and new viruses, with Big Pharma offering the answer. I couldn't care less if next time round it's the bubonic bloody plague. You give the public the information they need and let them act accordingly. You don't close schools, shut down businesses, mandate medication, borrow billions, or stop people from seeing, caring for, or even burying their loved ones. There will be siren calls for more COVID measures in the winter months as cases increase. I can't think many people will take those seriously now. I personally will not wear one of those filthy, worthless masks ever again. As the commentator James Melville points out this week, there are now 3 billion of those masks in the sea. Absolutely shocking. Look at the state of that. And we actually got through 129 billion, all of which were thrown away. 3 billion, that's a big number. Come on, Greg, let's have a look at how it appears on the screen. 3 billion masks. Non-biodegradable, killing wildlife, entering fish, and therefore, ultimately, the food chain. We used to wear the masks. Next, we'll be eating them. Nice. And how much did we borrow again, Greg? Let's have a look at this. $500 billion. I've never seen a number that big. I might get a tattoo of that on my forearm. The suggestion of more economically damaging COVID restrictions will be a sick joke to those shivering in their homes this autumn and winter, wearing 2 coats because they can't afford to switch the heater on, deciding just how many times they can afford to put the kettle on that day. In March 2020, a generation of politicians, so-called scientific experts, woke virtue-signalling medics and bullying broadcasters and journalists took us by the hand and led us into hell. Amazingly, they're still on telly and still on the radio, complaining about a crisis they created. They shouldn't be on the telly or on the radio. They should be in hiding. Never forgive and never forget. As we brace ourselves for a year of economic hell, which will impact our health, our lives, our livelihoods, and our future, it's the biggest I told you so in history. Never again. What's your view? Mark at gbnews.uk. I'd particularly like to hear from you if you disagree, but all opinions are welcome. Reacting to that and all of the big stories of the day are my all-star panel. Brand new to Mark Dolan tonight, presenter and award-winning journalist Linda Dubélé, making her debut, as I've said. Fleet Street and radio legend Mike Porky Parry, and model, presenter and TV personality Nicola McLean. Porky, let me start with you. What's your reaction to this news that we're going to be in recession potentially for over a year?
I'm not sure I believe it, to be honest. I thought it was a very doom-laden delivery from the new, and I thought rather exciting, controller of the Bank of England, Andrew Bailey, because I thought Mark Carney, his predecessor, was a Brexiteer who fought against the will of the people, and I didn't think he helped us out in the ways he could have done.
You mean Carney was a Remainer?
No, I didn't think Carney was a Remainer. I beg your pardon, I'm awfully sorry, Mark, thanks for putting me right. Carney was a Remainer, and I did not think that he was helping the will of the people who'd voted for Brexit to get out of Europe, and I thought he tried to stand up against it on a number of occasions. So I was delighted when he went. And when Mr Bailey came in, I thought, wow, you know, here's a breath of fresh air, and what we're going to see now is a dynamic input into the economy for all the things we need to do. Lower taxes, he would support that, and he would add the speed to the economy that had been missing during the Carney years. However, that didn't happen. He's also, in my view, incompetent in not having kept the lid on inflation. He should have raised interest rates a good 18 months ago, but didn't. I don't know why, because if the interest rates had gone up, then the economy would have rallied. As a result of him not being active in what he should have done, the pound is sinking against the US dollar. The US dollar is going up and surging because over there, what the Fed has done is they've decided that they've got to get tough and they put interest rates up. We haven't put interest rates up here quickly enough to contain the problem. amazingly, we put interest rates up yesterday, and all of a sudden the pound goes up and the stock market rallies, and that's what should have happened some time ago. But I'm not happy with the prognosis Mr Bailey gave yesterday, a really doom-laden scenario of how it's all going to be so terrible for the next 12 months. It could go on longer. Interest rates might go up to 13.5%. I have to say, I don't know whether he's got the evidence to be able to predict that sort of scenario and frighten everybody to death on the fact that he thinks costs are going to escalate when already costs are escalating, and he's just pouring petrol on the fire of fear.
And the petrol's never been more expensive.
Exactly.
Nicola McLean, do you think that Mike Porky Parry is guilty of wishful thinking that this economic bad news is exaggerated?
No, I don't. But then I do live in Nicola's world, and, like, you know, I get so terrified of these sort of things. So I'm going to stick with Mike and believe what he's saying, because I really hope that it's true, because I think we've had enough stress. We've been fed so much, and it is all doom and gloom. And I really hope that Mike's right, and it's just, you know, scaremongering, and we won't be as hit as people are saying for over a year and a half. I've already got friends that are struggling. You know, it's just so stressful. So, no, I'm going to go with Mike, definitely.
Nicola, I know that your glass is always half full. That's why we love having you on the show. However, does this not put paid to the idea of any future lockdowns, given that we are now paying the ultimate price?
I mean, you know that I was never a fan of lockdowns anyway. I didn't stick to the rules. I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. I wasn't keeping my kids locked up, and, you know, they already couldn't go to school. I thought it was absolutely ridiculous, couldn't play football. So I let their friends come over, and I went to the field and played football with them when we were told that we wasn't. I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. So I wouldn't be going forward with any lockdowns anyway. I'm like you, I won't wear a mask. Like, it was all ridiculous.
Linda Duberly, welcome to Mark Dolan tonight. Do you see a sort of connection between the COVID measures and the economic crisis we're now suffering?
Well, there's definitely a connection, because there are two reasons that we're now entering what we could view as an economic tsunami, and they are the pandemic, i.e. lockdowns, and the war in Ukraine. Now, that's a perfect storm, and that's exactly why we're heading into such perilous waters. Now, I would love to be optimistic. I think I'm a natural optimist, like Nicola and like Barry. Mike Barry, I want to be, you know, I want to view the glass as being half full. But when I looked at Andrew Bailey yesterday, I have to say that it wasn't just what he was saying, it was how he was saying it. He looked like a defeated, crestfallen man, and that was really a depressing point. The fact of the matter is, I do think that we are going to be in a very, very troubled territory for the next year and a half, and what will happen is that no matter what Rishi Sunak says, no matter what Liz Truss says, at the end of the day, there are big external factors behind this level of inflation, and the government's going to find it very, very difficult to get a handle on it, no matter which policy they pursue. It's a bit like looking at a boa constrictor. And a boa constrictor constricts and constricts and constricts. The more you wriggle, the more perilous it becomes. I mean, I, for one, I am nervous, and I'm very, very worried about my kids, about my family, about some of my friends.
But, Mark, why didn't we get any positives from Mr Bailey? Why didn't he stress, for instance, the fact that we've got full employment in this country, OK? And there are still hundreds of thousands of jobs for people to take up. Why didn't he stress the fact that if Liz Truss is able to employ some of the policies she's got about cutting taxes and bringing growth into the economy, then that will short-circuit all the doom-laden nonsense he gave us yesterday? Why was he so negative? Why was it all, you know, bad, 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 down, 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 when his job as the Governor of the Bank of England is to optimise and tell us how we can get it back up, up, up? He's got no ideas.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. I've got to say, many are questioning why he is still in post. But what's your view? Mark at gbnews.uk. I think you'll agree we're travelling first class with my panel tonight. They will return before the end of the hour to answer our first news agenda question of the day. After that video in which Rishi Sunak boasted about diverting funds from poor urban areas, is Rishi Sunak toast? We'll discuss that, and we will react to the latest leadership hustings debate between Truss and Sunak. The race for number 10 covered at 9:45. But next up, should we give up the car to save the planet? We'll debate that shortly.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go? Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Big reaction to my big opinion monologue. They're coming in thick and fast. Mark at gbnews.uk. How about this from Chris? Mark, I queued for bread in the 70s and ate it by candlelight. I'm still here. I do think this will be harder as we are now used to having everything when we want it. Sadly, I'd be more inclined to believe we were heading to the 30s than the 70s. Trevor says, hi, Mark. Furlough, lockdown and the scaremongering mainstream media are the main reasons why we're in this financial mess. And of course, Bailey and the Bank of England did not act soon enough to quell inflation. We could now see mortgage rates hitting 15% again, as we did back in the 1980s. Well, Trevor, thank you very much for that. I personally don't think they will get that high. I think that the Bank of England just won't let them get that high, or the government, because that would do for the economy. I'm not sure we'd ever recover from that. But it's all about opinions. Keep them coming. Mark at gbnews.uk. At 10 o'clock in my take at 10, I'll be dealing with poor old Gary Lineker, who's got in a spot of bother with a joke about women's bras. That's right. It's a We Feel Your Pain special at 10:05. You won't want to miss it. I'm not pulling my punches. It's time now for the big question. Let's do it. That's right, it's time for the big question in which we tackle a major news story of the day tonight. In an article for the Daily Telegraph headlined, "We must never surrender our right to drive freely," Lord Frost, the government's former chief Brexit negotiator, the man who got Brexit done, argues that governments across Europe and the world are doing everything short of outright bans of private cars, which are closer than you think. Is his view an overreaction, or are our days behind the wheel of a private car numbered? So tonight's big question is a simple one. Should we give up our cars to save the planet? Check out our text poll on Twitter and do vote on that. But to debate this, I'm delighted to welcome the climate columnist at the independent newspaper, Donegal McCarthy, cyclist Alex Dosett, who's a world record holder and Commonwealth gold medalist, former Lib Dem MP Lembit Opik, and part of our panel tonight, Fleet Street's finest, Mike Porky Parry. Let me start with you, if I may. Alex, tell me whether you think we should give up the car for good to save the planet. You're probably pro that because you love your bike.
Oh, I'd like to think I sit well and truly on the fence. My father was a racing car driver and very much a petrol head. But I am a professional cyclist by trade, and I understand the vast distances that can be covered by bicycle. So and very, very conflicted on the topic.
Well, it's a very interesting debate and one that's, I think, going to intensify in the years to come. Donica McCarthy, what's your view?
Well, there is a role for the private motor car for rural people and for disabled in cities. But in light of the seriousness of the climate emergency now unfolding across the planet, we have to move away from the private motor car in our cities, where 70% of trips are under 5 miles, where they can be done by public transport, by cycling, by e-bikes, or even by walking. The scenes from across the planet at the moment in terms of food destruction and crop destruction is leading into food inflation. Food inflation leads to unstable governments, and we're also looking at inflation with building materials because the forests are burning and are being destroyed by insects. We have to act, and we have to act now. The Meteorological Office said in a report just 6 weeks ago that by 2100 we'd be looking at regular 35 degrees centigrade, and maybe we would be facing 40 degrees centigrade in the UK. 6 weeks later, that prediction for 2100 was broken, and we experienced it horrifically in the UK. We have to act.
Donoghue McCarthy, if we get rid of the private car, not only will we kill the British car industry, we'll kill the economy as well, because busy roads mean a busy, productive economy. So if you get rid of cars, you'll smash the economy, which means we won't be able to afford your fancy and rather expensive green policies.
The most expensive policy is to actually not take action on the climate. If the predictions by the various think tanks stating that we will be facing a 1 in 2 chance of a simultaneous collapse of our food crops and major food baskets by the 2040s, you haven't seen anything yet for inflation, and nothing destroys the economies like inflation. You're absolutely right.
Lembit OPIC, the planet's on fire. Get rid of that Audi.
I don't have an Audi, but Donoghue McCarthy is talking rubbish. There are very simple points to be made here. First of all, there is no climate emergency. If you actually look at the history of the climate over a long period of time, the changes
Come on,
to our
Lambert, you're more intelligent than this.
You know what? That's interesting. I knew you would interrupt me because the Green...
Yes, because actually saying something that I thought were responsible on TV is shocking.
Donoghue, let Lembit speak and I'll give you a right to reply.
To hear what I'm going to say.
Lembit.
It's 40 degrees centigrade. You're saying there is no climate change. It's shocking.
Look, with the climate alarmists, their main methodology
is to try and it's 40 degrees. It's reality.
Once again, let the viewer observe that Donoghue McCarthy doesn't even let me finish my point. He can disagree with it, but he doesn't want you to hear it. And the reason is because he has no answer to the following questions. Why, if CO2, if carbon dioxide is driving the climate, we had much warmer periods in human history before the Industrial Revolution? Secondly, and even more profound...
Come on, Lembit. OK, I'll answer the question.
Donoghue, I'll come back to you. But Lembit, finish your point, please.
Thank you. It is very frustrating. And let the viewer observe that the bullies on the Green side don't even tolerate people like me challenging their arguments. If they've got the data, let them put it forward. So the first point is CO2 and climate change are not connected. Now, I've been studying this for 44 years, and I can say for a fact that it's been warmer before than it is now, before the Industrial Revolution. Second and central point here, you get rid of the car. Good job there, Donoghue. My late mother wasn't very mobile. She can't cycle. She couldn't cycle, she couldn't walk. But apparently your obsession with the climate crisis is so great that you're willing to undermine the less mobile and the elderly in the United Kingdom in an urban environment so that they can't get into the centre of town. Now, that's not an environmental argument, but honestly, it's disgraceful that people like you think that your obsessive mission to try to limit our freedoms with no scientific basis whatsoever matters more than the freedoms and liberty of people like my late mother.
Lembit, play the ball, not the man. And before I come back to Donoghue, the planet's heating up, the polar ice caps are melting, sea levels are rising. And how do you explain the astonishing heat wave a couple of weeks ago, 40 degrees in central London?
Okay, let me apologise if it seemed like I was playing the man. Donohoe is a friend, and I don't want to give the impression that I'm personally holding him responsible for bad behaviour. Sorry, Donohoe, I didn't mean to seem like that. The answer to your question, Mark, is that the Antarctic ice cap is actually growing. Did you know that? Last year, it recorded the second coldest 6 months in human recorded history. No one's telling you that because it doesn't fit the narrative. Polar bears, apparently they're going extinct. Well, actually, they're at a record population since around 1962. But none of this fits the narrative. So the scientific response to what you've said is very simple. We are not facing a climate crisis. As one of the gurus in the subject, Brian Catt, who I'm honoured to know, says, actually, the changes are nominal. It's getting warmer because we started measuring seriously the climate, the temperatures around 1850 at the end of the Little Ice Age. It should have got warmer. It's going to get colder again. And I think that the alarmists are doing far more harm to our society than anybody else.
Lembit, should we do anything?
Yes, we should handle, hopefully Donohoe would agree with me on this, even if he disagrees with other things that I've said. We should manage our resources prudently. But that's different to being concerned that we're wrecking the climate. Incidentally, by the way, the world's getting greener. We're getting a more fertile planet because there is a small increase in CO2, which is a fertilizer for plants. So yes, let's make sure that if we're going to be here for the next 10,000 years, we don't squander all of our resources in the next 200 years. But that means that we need to do, for example, nuclear power, things that many of the Greens disagree with, and other forms of prudent energy management. But the one thing that we don't need to worry about is human beings wrecking the climate, because at the very, very most, our contribution to carbon dioxide, this great demon gas, is 3.5%. It's more likely to be near 0.7.
That's really
okay, Mike and Alex, I'll bring you in just a moment, but I did promise you a right of reply, Donohoe. I don't know if the planet's temperature is rising, but yours is.
Well, sorry, Mark. It's not a question whether you or I think the temperature is rising. The world's scientific bodies have told us for a fact it is rising. And any human being who looks at what's going on across the planet, and having this person on is actually shocking in this day and age. If anybody watched the Big Oil documentary recently on the BBC, they'll see very clearly there's been a 50-year program to get people like Lembit out there in the public sowing out so we don't take action. And the result of that is now we are gone beyond the point of actually protecting the planet completely. We're now in trying to rescue what we can. The idea that this person comes on and says he has studied it. A non-scientist has studied science, and he can contradict all of the Nobel Peace Prize scientists, all of the scientific bodies in the country, and he says they are wrong and he is right, is shocking, insulting to our listeners tonight. And what we need to be talking about, what action we need to take, and the action we need to take is to reduce our carbon emissions radically and fast. Anything else is utterly betraying Britain and our future.
Donohoe, you've said that it's shocking that somebody like Lembit is saying these things on TV. Do you not believe in free speech? Wasn't the great mistake of the pandemic the idea of the science is settled? And now, after the failure of lockdowns, it's quite clear the science was not settled. Do we risk not having the same groupthink when it comes to climate, Donohoe?
Well, the issue is that if we had a discussion this evening about whether the planet's round or not, would you tolerate a flat earther? Because that's the situation we're in.
Why not?
Because what's happening, Mark, is really serious. What's happening is people like Lembit have for 30, 40 years argued it's not happening, and the science is now unfolding around us. And because of him, people are actually left defenseless around the planet. And this is really disturbing. He is a clear enemy of Britain. He is betraying the people of Britain by delaying the action necessary to protect our boundaries and our future security and our food supply. This year, from the rise in temperatures in the United Kingdom alone, we're facing a threat to our crops, and the farmers are saying we'll face a 10% inflation from food costs in the UK alone. Crops are failing in Argentina, they're failing in America, they're failing in India, and they're failing in China. This is grossly irresponsible, Mark, to have this person on.
Well, now you're playing the man, not the ball. I thought you guys were friends. We'll have to kiss and make up at the end if that just doesn't generate too much heat. Let's bring Mike Porky Parry into this before we come back to world record holder Alex Dowsett. Mike Porky Parry, can you find a sort of happy landing space for this debate? Should we give up the car to save the planet?
Well, let's get back to the car, right? Everybody knows, everybody who's got a mind that thinks there is a left-wing political plot against motorists in this country and across the Western world, OK? The other morning, I was going to a job and a car picked me up at 4:30 in the morning, and then the car had to drive at 20 miles an hour, right, through parts of Greater London to get me to where I was going. There was nobody on the road. The idea is, well, it's got to be 20 miles an hour because actually that will stop children getting knocked down if they're crossing the road. There aren't any children around at 5:30 in the morning. You should have variable speed limits if you need them at all. Cars are not meant to go at 20 miles an hour. Now, the other thing, as we know, is that road space for cars consistently over the last 30 years has been narrowed. So we've got bus lanes, we've got cycle lanes, we've got wider pavements. And why is this? It's to reduce the amount of tarmac upon which a car can drive to force drivers off the road. We've got higher taxes all the time for drivers. We've got ridiculous charges to go into cities. We've got low emission zones. We've got neighbourhood zones, which now put huge concrete baskets in the middle of the road with flowers in them to stop people driving around. People don't realise there is a concerted political movement to force drivers off the road in this country. And you know why? It's all about control. The thing that those politicians, those left-wing politicians hate is people who are free to think for themselves and move for themselves. So I want to get up in the morning and I want to jump into my car where I live in Surrey and I want to shoot down the A3 and go to the other place I live on the south coast of England, OK? But if all of a sudden I'm driving into an area where all these horrible yellow speed trap lights are, OK? I have to suddenly slow down and go at 50 miles an hour. The speed limit in this country is 70 miles an hour, but a lot of it has been reduced by default to 50 miles an hour on the basis that, oh, there's going to be road repairs coming up soon. It's a traffic exercise. There is a huge political will in this country to force the car off the road by making it so unattractive and so expensive to drive that people will eventually give up their cars so that the politicians of that particular persuasion can control you. They can put you on trains and trains only go where they say they go, put you on trams, put you on buses. But the freedom to think for yourself, move for yourself, to be able to liberate yourself and go wherever you want, that's what they want to take off you. And the mad notion that we can have electric cars by 2030, 2035, what are we going to do? Build 10 new nuclear power stations to provide the electricity? Because we're already talking about blackouts this winter because of the situation is critical in providing energy into this country. What happens if everybody starts using electric cars, which are wholly inefficient, which don't work, which pollute because the tyres degrade on electric cars, the batteries are made of lithium, children in Africa have to go down mines to produce the chemicals and the metals to make those batteries? It's all a complete farce. We should stick with the internal combustion engine because it's the most efficient form of transport and has been since it was invented in the 19th century.
Mike, what are you driving at the moment?
Mercedes.
Is it one of those nice sort of fastback ones?
Very fast. Very fast indeed.
And you won't be giving it up anytime soon?
I won't be giving it up anytime soon, even when they start imposing more and more onerous taxes. And by the way, can I say this? People say, well, cars are polluters. Since 2010, we have reduced emissions in this country by 28%. Most of the emissions that people were worried about were coming out of the exhaust pipes of cars. Now the fuel is cleaner. Now the engines are more efficient. We've cut it by 28%. We can't cut it any further. Nobody else in the world has cut as much as we have. We're doing our bit. And while countries like China are not, who incidentally last week ordered another 300 million tonnes of coal to be dug each year, why are we putting ourselves in a position where we're making our lives more difficult when others in the world realise it's a load of nonsense.
All pertinent questions. Put that in your exhaust pipe and smoke it. So, Alex Dowsett, do you think it's just a matter of time before we will have to relinquish and give up the private car?
No, but I think call it a private car, call it a personal transportation device, needs to be better. I mean, Mike alluded that he drives from Surrey to central London. That's a distance that could be ridden by bicycle. If you've got two functioning legs, that's a distance that could be done by bike.
No, I mean, the thing is, he hasn't got your calf muscles, Alex.
No, absolutely.
Mike Porky-Parry, he's got an excellent liver, but very weak legs.
Very weak legs.
And I'll be honest with you, quite short as well. I don't want to be unkind.
Bike lanes are to make...
Hairy
to
as
solve
well.
these issues
Hairy and short.
Have all been brought up. I think some very valid points have been made from all angles here, albeit I think everyone is very much way over in their corner. But ultimately, from my standpoint, the personal transportation device, an automated private one, can't be relinquished because of the restriction of freedom of movement it will cause for so many people. But secondly, it needs to be better because there is, I speak for the young in that there is a climate change crisis going on. Like, that is believed. And there is scientists who are the only people that should be listened to with this, that are providing like graphic images, sort of bona fide evidence. So we all need to do our bit. But you can't just cut off, like you said, the elderly from being able to move around. But car companies, our manufacturers should be investing in making the personal transportation device better.
And also, Alex, there's no point going green if it bankrupts the economy, which further enriches and emboldens China.
But the economy is being bankrupted by the fossil fuel industry, not the green.
Alex, can you pick up on that point, though? Because I'm all for going green, but there's not much point if other countries like India, the United States, China and Russia do nothing.
Well, actually, China has actually got over 50%.
Donoghue, I'll come to you with your pro-China rant in just a second. Alex Dowsett, really want to hear what you think about this before I come to Donoghue.
We all need to do our bit. Like, we talk about China, we talk about India. Like, we are the UK, we need to do our bit. We need to put pressure on China and India and those countries to do their bit. Why bother if they do nothing, Alex? What's the point? We can't sit here and go, we're not going to do our bit because they're not doing theirs. Like, that's, if the whole world takes that approach, then like, where are we all going to end up? But ultimately, we all share the same planet here.
Listen, Alex, do you think you would take Mike Porky-Parry out on a tandem one day just to show him how it's done?
I'd like to show how the bike is a far less intimidating mode of transport and far more liberating mode of transport than I think a lot of people deem it to be. It's deeply frustrating that we are referred to as cyclists. We're not people. Like, I am someone's son. I am my daughter's father. But when I'm on the road, I am just a cyclist. And I think a lot of people immediately don't want to join that group of people. So instead of being a cyclist, I think we should be referred to as people that use bikes as a mode of transport. And
Alex,
that should be...
how long would it take me to get from Surrey to the south coast on a bike? I haven't got that much time in life, mate. You know, if you want to push the world backwards, we can go back to medieval times and all drive horses and carts.
Sorry to London. Listen, very interesting, Alex. Great to get your perspective on that. The clock's against us. So, Donoghue, give me your last closing thoughts on this, if you wouldn't mind.
Just 2 points about China. 50% of the investment globally in solar panels is coming from China. 70% of wind energy is being invested by China. And third point is, many people attack Boris Johnson for his hypocrisy over lockdown. Well, we don't want Britain on the global stage to be in the same position, saying to China and India, you must act if we haven't acted ourselves. Transport emissions have not gone down for the last 30 years. We must tackle them. We put our house in order, and then we go to China and India and say, we've done a house in order, now you need to do it too. Because we want to be proud of Britain. We don't want any more hypocrisy like Boris Johnson's. We want to stand up in front of the world and say Britain is willing to put our house in order and demand everybody else does, because our kids depend on it.
Lembit, Greg's given me 10 seconds. Do your worst.
Yeah, I just want to ask this question. Donoghue, will you send me the evidence that CO2 is driving climate change? Just send me the evidence, because it's not true. And if it's not true,
I refer you to every single major scientific body in the world, and you can have it blended.
Motorcycles, drive cars is an insane policy, which, as has been implied, is actually going to do an awful lot of damage to the West for no benefit.
So sad to see you, Lambert. So sad to see you doing this.
There is one way to get Mike Porky Parry onto a bicycle, and that's to tell him that if he does so, it'll take him to a Wetherspoons. An interesting conversation, an important one, and it will continue. Mark at gbnews.uk. What is your view? I'll give you the results of the text poll in just a moment. But my sincere thanks to, I've got to say, 4 grown-ups, a great debate, all about opinions. The climate columnist at The Independent, Donna McCarthy. Cyclist Alex Dowsett, world record holder and Commonwealth gold medalist. Go Alex. Also former Lib Dem MP Lembit Opik and our very own Fleet Street's finest Mike Porky Parry. Let's have a look now at the result of the text poll. Should we give up our cars to save the planet? 6% said yes, 94% said no. Coming up at 10 o'clock, I'll be dealing with Gary Lineker in my Take at 10. It's a We Feel Your Pain special. My heart bleeds for St. Gary, and you won't want to miss that one just after the news headlines at 10. We've also got 2 very talented singers in Mark Meets, including the last Irish winner of Eurovision and a Brit winner as well. So lots to come. But next up, after that video, is Rishi Sunak toast? See you in 2.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Do I need it?
No. A big reaction to the big question, should we give up a private motor car in order to save the planet? This from Alex, who says, Mike Porky Parry in spandex cycling shorts. Thanks for that mental image, Mark. I've got to say, you've really enjoyed that debate. Mike Parry's right, says Gordon. If I want to go to the beach right now, I can. It's a 2-hour drive, but I can go. Take away my car and I'm buggered. It's a massive plot. Loving the show. Well, Gordon, we're loving having you watching, loving all of the emails coming in. Ray says, Mark, good debate. But shut down that nut job who keeps interrupting. I remember the damn hot temperatures during the 60s and 70s and fires on the North Yorkshire moors and Cleveland Hills. Not due to the temperature, but usually litter bottles and sun rays. I agree with Lembit and Mike. Look, I could read these all day long. Angela says, Mark, please can you have scientists on both sides of the argument about climate change? I'm sick of hearing just one side which is that we're doomed. The representative you have on, Donoghue McCarthy, is a very rude and disgraceful person. If you disagree with him, he interrupts you. No manners. Steve, it is all about opinions on this show. It's a free speech zone, I should say, so keep those opinions coming. Well, a clip has emerged in the last 24 hours in which Rishi Sunak has boasted about diverting funds from poor urban areas to wealthier rural areas. Take a look at this.
Managed to start changing the funding formulas to make sure that areas like this are getting the funding that they deserve. Because we inherited a bunch of formulas from the Labour Party that shoved all the funding into deprived urban areas. Then that needed to be undone. I started the work of undoing that. I made sure as Chancellor across government...
Well, Rishi Sunak tonight doubled down on those comments at the latest Tory leadership hustings, and this time in Eastbourne, and insisted he wants to level up everywhere.
I want to be radical about seizing the opportunities of Brexit, as I did as Chancellor, to make sure that this is the most dynamic economy in the world for business. And I want to level up everywhere. And as you may have seen from a video clip that's online, I don't believe that's just about our very large urban cities. I believe it's about investing and levelling up in small towns, in rural communities, in coastal communities like those here in the southeast.
Well, he's on the defensive. It begs the question, is Rishi toast? We'll discuss that now with my brilliant panel. And let me start with you, Linda Jubilee. Is it game over now for Rishi Sunak?
I think he's way, way, way behind, and it will be enormously difficult for him to catch up. But I do understand that after the Sky debate with Kay Burley, that actually they had to do a live studio vote at the end instead of the electronic version, which failed. And he actually won that debate, whereas she had been winning the previous debates. I think that might have been because of what Andrew Bailey was saying about the economy, and he's seen as a safe pair of hands. He's seen as someone who actually understands what he's talking about. So I think that may have influenced that debate. But I think it will be very, very hard for him to catch up. The clip you saw was obviously him talking to the party faithful. And he tailors his speeches, they both do, to appeal to a warm audience. And I think that's good. That appeals to the party membership. But that kind of delivery won't be the kind of delivery that actually wins an election. You have to have a completely different kind of content and a different type of delivery if you want to win a general election. So he'll have to avoid that mistake in future.
Well, I backed Rishi Sunak at the start, but I'm disappointed by his campaign because I think although he's been eloquent and clearly, he's a coherent thinker, there's been an air of desperation about his whole campaign, hasn't there?
Maybe. I watched both of them last weekend at close quarters. And I first of all saw Rishi Sunak, and I talked to the audience around me and I asked what they thought. They describe him as slick. You see, I think he's polished and he's well practised. I don't think he's slick. But they preferred Liz Truss, and that's because she's kind of homely, a bit warmer. She resonates with her audience a little bit more. And I think that's how she's gradually stolen a march.
Yes, I mean, we saw Tim Montgomery, very much a sort of Conservative Party insider, Nicola, saying that's it, it's over for Rishi Sunak now because of that video, which will be weaponised by the Labour Party of him saying, I'm taking money away from poor urban areas. Not a good look. Might have been taken out of context, but it's a win for Labour and bad news for Sunak.
Yeah, definitely. I said on this show before, he's just so out of touch. I mean, he's so wealthy. You and I had a little bit of a debate about it because you're saying, oh, well, he wasn't from money. He is from money. He's not, he's got more money than the urban people that he's talking about. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, for sure. And with what's going on at the minute, I don't think we need a future Prime Minister joking about taking money away from the poor. I just don't. I don't see how that can be funny. And if I was Labour, I'd be using it to weaponise.
I mean, I think it's been very unfair that he said that he somehow thought it was funny. It was more that he was boasting that he was levelling the playing field in terms of how much money goes around the country. But, I mean, is Rishi Sunak not entitled to say to voters around the country, look, I'm going to make sure that every region gets its cash?
Yeah, Rishi Sunak should pull out of the race now. I agree entirely with Linda that he's so far behind. I think I saw a poll just before the show tonight, 62-32 or something in favour of Liz Truss. I think one of the reasons, by the way, he won that Sky poll was she got her tactics wrong. She won the toss and went first. don't you always go second? Because then you've got the lasting memory in the audience and planting it in the head. So I think that was a tactical bad move for her. The only time she's fallen behind in a face-to-face debate, and she got her tactics wrong. If I was Sunak, I'd pull out.
OK, well, look, I tell you what, hold that thought, because there's more to come, including the papers at 10:30 with some amazing stories. Next up, I'll be dealing with Gary Lineker in my Take at 10. See you shortly.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
It's 10 o'clock and this is Mark Dolan Tonight. In just a moment, we've got another We Feel Your Pain special in which I reach out to a celebrity that's going through a tough time. Tonight, I'll be dealing with Saint Gary Lineker, who's in hot water over a joke about women's football and bras. He made a boob. You won't want to miss that one. My Mark Meets guests are the talented singing duo of Emma Quinn, Ireland's last Eurovision Song Contest winner, and Sarah Class, who's won 3 Emmys and been nominated for a Brit. Also in the news agenda with my panel, should neighbours snitch on each other for using a hosepipe? Should there be tougher laws for killer cyclists? And at what age should parents kick their kids out of the bed? We'll discuss all of that, plus tomorrow's papers at exactly 10:30. But after this, my take at 10, Saint Gary Lineker, the halo has slipped. First up, the headlines with the ever-angelic Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you very much, Mark. I am Tatiana Sanchez in the GB Newsroom. Tory leadership hopeful Rishi Sunak has told GB News that political correctness is affecting how grooming gangs are tackled in Britain. While speaking exclusively to Esther and Philip, he explained how he'd address the problem if he becomes Prime Minister.
You made a policy this week about tackling extremism and wanting to do more about that. I just wondered whether or not that would include doing more to tackle some of the grooming gangs that we see in our towns and cities across the country, Telford, Rotherham, Bradford, where my constituency is. What can you say to people in those areas about what you do to try and make sure that we clamp down more on that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I have 2 young girls who are 9 and 11, and I think for too long we just haven't focused on this issue, Philip. And it's a horrific crime that is affecting actually not just girls in a few places, it's far more pervasive across the country than actually we all realise. And we all know the reason that people don't focus on it. It's because of political correctness, and they're scared of calling out the fact that there's a particular group of people who are perpetuating these crimes, and I think that's wrong. I think that's wrong, and I want to change that as Prime Minister. So what I've said is we'll have a new task force at the National Crime Agency that's focused on this. We will have a requirement for police forces everywhere to prioritise this. I want to make sure that all police forces record the ethnicity of those involved, which currently is not done because people don't want to do that. And I want to create a brand new life sentence for those involved in grooming with very limited options for parole, because I'm not going to let political correctness stand in the way of tackling this absolutely horrific crime. I want to call it out for what it is, and I want to tackle it properly, because when you read about it, it's awful. And I have 2 young girls and I feel this very personally, but a Conservative government should be not letting political correctness stand in the way of keeping people safe, and that's what I want to do.
You can watch the full interview with Esther and Philip from 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. And some breaking news. Archie Battersbee's parents are said to be devastated after exhausting all legal avenues to extend his care. Life support for the 12-year-old, who'd been in a coma since April, is due to be withdrawn at 10 o'clock in the morning. It's after the European Court of Human Rights said it would not intervene in the case following a High Court ruling that he can't be moved to a hospice. TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now it's back to Mark.
Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. Big stories, big guests, and always big opinions. In the news agenda with my panel, should neighbours snitch on each other for using a hosepipe? Should there be tougher laws for killer cyclists? And at what age should parents kick their kids out of the bed? Plus, we've got another topical game show and tomorrow's papers at exactly 10:30 sharp with full panel reaction. My Mark Meets guests are the talented singing duo of Emma Quinn, Ireland's last Eurovision Song Contest winner, and composer Sarah Klaas, who's been nominated for a Brit and won 3 Emmys. But first, it's time for my Take at 10. It's time now for my Take at 10 and an occasional item that we do on the show called We Feel Your Pain, in which I reach out to a celebrity that's going through a tough time. Tonight, the nicest, kindest, most empathetic and politically correct man in the world, probably a man with more goodness in his heart than the Pope himself, Saint Gary Lineker. Gary, almost certainly the nicest man on the planet, potentially a better human being than the Dalai Lama. Well, the Dalai Lineker has got himself into a bit of hot water when celebrating the England women football team's victory in the Euros. He made a joke on Twitter. It read as follows: "The Lionesses have only gone and done it, and Kelly is England's heroine, bra none." Oh dear, he made a tit of himself there. What a boob. Well, he's had his knockers. All the woke people on Twitter with blue hearts, just like Gary, all the people who say be kind but are amazingly toxic, all the people with rainbows and the EU flag on their bio, turned on their own Prince of Woke. Devastatingly for Saint Gary, the nicest man in the world, probably more morally upstanding than Mother Teresa. Well, Gary was forced to defend this tweet and then ultimately delete it. As the brilliant comedian Abby Roberts always says, the woke crocodile will eventually devour its own. Now, I'm all for free speech and I defend Gary's right to do his little gag. It was absurd that he received any flack for it. But he's only brought this upon himself with his endless moral posturing. And this is a guy that's apparently so woke and so lovely. In just a couple of months' time, he'll be presenting World Cup shows in a country where homosexuality is illegal. And he'll be presenting those programmes in stadia built by slaves, many of whom fell to their death in blazing 45-degree heat during their construction. He's apparently so woke and so lovely, he's at war with HMRC over his tax bill. What, do you mean he's so lovely he wants to pay more? No, he's trying to pay less. This is a guy apparently so woke and so lovely, he sells potato-based junk food to kids And a man who works for an organisation that will send old ladies to prison if they don't pay 160 quid a year to watch him. He's so woke and so lovely, apparently, that he doesn't get flags except when he's got shirts to sell. All of this is so unfair on St. Gary, a man who spoke out about being a victim of racism. That's right, a victim of racism, even though he's described himself as English as they come. I hope you're not conflating being white with being English, Gary. Speaking on her unmissable GB News show, our very own Nana Akua said, "I'm black, Gary, you're white, and your comments trivialise the experience of racism." Now, I rarely disagree with Nana. I wouldn't dare, but I think that may be unfair. Think about it. Alongside the incredible John Barnes, Ledley King and Marcus Rashford, I consider Gary Lineker to be one of the best footballers of colour this country has ever produced. Is he as good as Pelé? He may just be. In fact, I think he's one of the greatest men of colour the world has ever seen, alongside, I would suggest, Martin Luther King and Mahatma Gandhi. Tell me that Gary doesn't sit comfortably on that list. Luther King, Gandhi, Lineker. And Gary now gets in trouble for making an off-brand joke that some saw as a bit sexist. How dare they? They know nothing about this man, a man who, like Jesus himself, walks on water. The Beatles famously said that they're bigger than Jesus. Well, hand on heart, I was raised a Christian, and I think Gary is better than Jesus. Think about it. Luther King, Gandhi, Christ. And ultimately, Lineker. So let's just take a moment and a deep breath as we say, Gary Lineker, we feel your pain. Hashtag pray for Gary. And on that spiritual note, it's time now for this. We couldn't get a picture of Jesus up in time, but I'm relieved because my Catholic mother would have been furious. Yes, indeed, it is time now for Mark Meets, in which I speak to the biggest names in the world of politics, showbiz, sport, business and beyond. Tonight, I'm joined by Ireland's last Eurovision contest winner, Emer Quinn, and composer Sarah Klaas, a triple Emmy Award and Classical Brit nominee. Emer represented Ireland on the big Eurovision stage in 1996 and won. Sarah Klaas is one of Britain's most sought-after composers and has worked with a number of musicians, including 8 times Grammy Award winner Jay Newland. They've released a new single together called Nadies of Nymphs. Here's a little snippet. It's a beautiful song. Take a listen. What a tune. I'm delighted to say that Sarah and Emer join me now. Good evening, ladies.
Good evening. Hello there, Mark.
First of all, that's a banging tune. Where did you record it, Sarah?
Well, I recorded it at my studio in Bristol, although a lot of it was written in Greece, in Corfu, and inspired by the beautiful waterfalls and the spiritual nature of Corfu. All the nature there's stunning.
It's just brilliant. And when was it written?
I actually wrote it 2 years ago in lockdown. Well, actually, it started before that. I had an idea for it before that in Greece, before we were allowed to go away. And then since then, I've sort of, I've re-recorded the song with Emer because we had this idea that we would like to extend it, remix it. And also it's Sappho's poetry, the Greek poet from, I think she lived between 630 and 570 BC in Lesbos. So it's really all about female friendship and love, and so there's a mixture of influences and times, and a lot of euphoria around the excitement about writing it. Yes, and the video, of course, that's another thing that we love doing.
Yeah, where did you shoot the video, Sarah?
Well, I have to be honest and say a lot of it's all Greece. It wasn't all specially shot because we had to really get the video ready in time. So a lot of it's library and a lot from my own library. And yes, it was quite inspiring just seeing all those Greek images. We wanted people to feel that they were on holiday in ancient Greece.
Well, listen, it's mesmeric. The pictures are mesmeric, as is the music, and we've been playing it over and over again in our rather boisterous newsroom, and everyone loves it, especially your voice, Emma.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, that is lovely to hear.
I've been trying to sing along, but I've lost my falsetto.
Well,
there must be a remedy.
How's your ancient Greek going there, Mark? Is it you getting a handle on it?
It's better than my falsetto, put it that way. It's brilliant, and your voice is just is unbelievable for that tune. Emma, how did you meet Sarah?
Oh, well, Sarah and I actually were both published by Sir George Martin. And I was introduced because of that relationship. He felt that we would have a connection and a synergy, and we did. From the very first time that he put us together, I came to Bristol at the time I was living in Dublin, and popped over. And Sarah and I, we clicked creatively immediately, but also we became really, really close friends, like soul sisters from the first moment. So we just get each other, and so it's become a really, really essential, important friendship to both of us in our lives, creatively and many other ways.
So Sir George Martin, the legendary Beatles producer, worked his magic once again. I mean, can you tell me, Emma, about what it was like being guided by that man and just knowing him?
It was an incredible honour, really, to have spent any time in his company. The most beautiful thing was that I got once to sing when he conducted me in Dublin with the full orchestra. I sang his beautiful arrangement of For No One while he conducted us. That was just really wonderful. And Sarah actually spent a lot of time in studio working with him, and they worked especially well on the really big hit album that Hayley Westerner had, Pure. That was your big collaboration, wasn't it, Sarah?
Yes, that was a big one, and also Cantamus, which is a beautiful girls' choir, and it was great working with him. He had this really wicked sense of humour, and he'd have these kind of quieter sides that I would hear, and he was amazing. He just had this very witty and very direct manner. He wasn't afraid to call a spade a spade. You know, it didn't matter who it was, whether it was Paul McCartney or whoever. He would just say what he thought about it without any shame.
And what do you think, Sarah, about this genre of music? I mean, you've won 3 Emmys and nominated for a classical Brit as well, Sarah. So what do you think about the public appetite for classical music?
Well, I think that there's a market out there for something that's sort of in between. I think there is a market for it because it also verges on this cinematic movie type, movie-esque music, which I think everybody loves. And if it evokes a story, if it evokes something in you, then I think people connect with it on all sorts of different levels. And there's all types of age groups, as I've noticed in the demographic that comes up on who's listening, you know, Spotify, Apple Music, whoever. So it seems to appeal to a wide range. And I think it's really an untapped genre. So I'm hoping that this is something that will spread out to more people over time.
I'm sure it
What
will.
do you think?
And tell me about the songwriting process. How do you write songs and how long does it take, Sarah?
Well, sometimes this song, I have to say, came really quickly. It just happened over a couple of days. But I think working out the lyrics...
Sorry, you're being heckled by Ema there. There you go. You were just heckled by Ema there. But yeah, so that one came quickly over a couple of days.
Yes, but a song might take longer if you know, there's something that can be at work and sort of gestates in your mind over time. It could take longer. So you know, it depends whether it's lyrics comes first, the music sometimes comes first, and then the whole thing can come together. So yes, it's how long a piece of string is. Sometimes it's so inspiring, like this one just seemed to just fall into place, and it was its perfect little capsule together. And then when Ema said she would be happy to sing it with me, it was just, I don't know, just a wonderful fusion of our voices. I mean, obviously, you know, Ema's the seasoned singer here, but you know, I'm catching up slowly. I'm doing my practice.
Yeah, that's brilliant. You obviously didn't receive my demo tape, but that's fine. We'll move on. Ema, can you tell us about 1996? By the way, how can it be 96? You look about 20. That's unfair. You won Eurovision for Ireland. Ireland have won Eurovision 37 times. No, they've won it, I think, I can't remember. How many times have Ireland won? Something like 6 or 7 times.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
Loads. They're obviously an incredible country and culture of music and poetry, Ema. You won Eurovision. Did it change your life?
I think it's safe to say it did, actually, because like Sarah was talking about genre there, at the time I was only really into classical music and singing classical music, and it opened up my eyes and my horizons into singing other styles of music, particularly folk, and now really I suppose my own output of music, my own composition is a fusion of all of those things, of all of those influences. So creatively, definitely it changed the direction I was moving in. And then of course it's always lovely to do something, you know, under your national flag and achieve something for your country, even if it's in entertainment, and that has been really, really wonderful. And it's led me to have these most amazing opportunities performing all over the world with beautiful orchestras, and you know, so the short answer is yes. But I've had a charmed career as a result.
Yeah, well, exactly. Ema, is there any extent, I don't want to be negative at all, but is there any element to which it's an albatross? Because there is unfair snobbery in some circles about Eurovision, isn't there? Is there that side to it or not?
It really depends on how much you care about that kind of thing. So to me, it's never held me back. The snobbery, and you know, particularly having come from classical music, I would have gotten a lot of snobbery from a lot of my friends and stuff, saying, "Oh, well, why are you into that kind of music?" So I'm already used to people kind of prejudging. But the interesting thing is now, currently I'm living in Switzerland, and when in continental Europe, it's viewed quite differently to in Britain and Ireland, to be honest. And it's huge business now. It's enormous business. The record industry, I think, certainly in Britain, we're beginning to catch on to that this year, and the act is taken far more seriously, and the reach is huge, you know, within the hundreds of millions. So actually, to be honest, I'm living now in a place currently where it's taken far more seriously, and it's considered a bit of an achievement, which is kind of nice.
Well, it is a great achievement, and I'm always so proud with Irish parents to see an Irish winner of Eurovision. I remember Johnny Logan, and of course you in '96, and many others, and of course I love it when Britain win as well. And great news for the United Kingdom that they'll be staging it next year. Of course, it would be wonderful if it was Ukraine. That's not going to happen. So just briefly, Ema, what's your reaction to the staging of Eurovision happening in Britain next year, the runners-up?
Oh, I think it's a terrific idea. I mean, it makes sense to go to the runners-up. It's logical. In Britain, the infrastructure is there. I mean, the BBC will do a terrific job, I've no doubt. And you know, the commitment now is to co-host it, in fact, with Ukraine. So the Ukrainian element will be very evident, and I think it would just be another show of solidarity, to be honest.
How do we pronounce the title of your song?
Do you want to say, Sarah?
Naiads of Nymphes.
There you go, Naiads of Nymphes. Sarah, what's the best way for people to search it? If they've got Spotify or Apple Music or something, what's the best way to search it?
Well, yes, that's a difficult one. Go into Naiads, Naiades, Naiades, it's in Greek, of Nymphes. You can find it, through my website, sarahclass.com, but you can also find it everywhere. YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Deezer, all of the, Tidal, all of the platforms. Anyway.
Well, that's it. And if you of course, look for Sarah Class and Emma Quinn as well. And let's play out with another few bars of that beautiful song. Congratulations, ladies. Here it is, folks. And do give it your attention. Brilliant stuff. Lots more to come in the programme. We've got the papers at 10:30 with full panel reaction. Also in the news agenda with my panel. Should neighbours be snitching on each other for using a hosepipe? Is it time to have tougher laws against killer cyclists? And what's the right age to kick your kids out of the bed? Lots to come, plus another topical game show as well. See you in 2.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know. The latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, Matt. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
What's the best part of my show? When you get in touch by email. I love getting your emails. mark@gbnews.uk. We've had a record number of emails tonight. Thank you so much for all of them. This from Stephen, who says, Dear Mark, I've often disagreed with your views, but this evening you have nailed it with a very astute intro. And your guest, Lembit Opik, is right. I think if carbon dioxide levels increased by 10%, it would help our forests to grow. It's all about opinions. If you want to catch up on my big opinion monologue, The cheerleaders for lockdown are now complaining about the consequences they brought about. Do check that out at GB News on Twitter. On the subject of should we give up our cars to save the planet, Jessica says, so as a mum, I'm expected to ride a bike, balancing my 3 young kids off the handlebars, riding the 6 miles to my nearest supermarket with the added weight of 4 or more shopping bags on the ride home. Jessica, I'm sure you're highly capable, but I think even by your standards, that is asking too much. I'll get to more of your emails shortly, but more from the news agenda now with my brilliant panel. People have been told to snitch on their neighbours if they catch them flouting a hosepipe ban. Lawbreakers could face a fine of up to £1,000. A hosepipe ban has come into force in parts of southern England following hot weather warnings and shortages last month. So it begs the question, should neighbours be snitching on each other for using a hosepipe or bending any other rules? Nicola?
No, they really shouldn't. Just no. I like this one. People ask to gently remind others about water restrictions. I'd love my neighbour to knock on my door and gently remind me. I mean, I can't even say what I'd say.
You would gently tell her where to go?
Yeah, with the big F in front.
You'd give her a spray?
Yeah, I'd spray her, yeah.
With your hose pipe?
Yeah, I really would.
We saw this in the pandemic, didn't we? Neighbours snitching about, you know, oh, next door they've gone for more than one walk today. The curtain twitchers.
Yeah. I was on the village neighbourhood watch thing saying, please help a woman and another woman, clearly not the same family, with their children playing football in a massive field. Please help in massive letters. And I thought, oh, please get a grip. I mean, it's just embarrassing, isn't it?
Well, it is. And I don't think it's neighbours' job to police each other. That's what the cops are for. That's what the local authorities are for. And I think this sets a dangerous precedent that it divides our communities. Don't you think, Linda?
Yeah, it's an unpleasant trait, snitching, isn't it?
Well, you see, I don't agree at all. I would report. I'm sorry. I'm going to be stalking around Stockbroker Belt, sorry. If I see anybody out with the hosepipe, they're going to get it, OK?
Have you got binoculars?
No, I haven't got binoculars, but I've got a pretty keen eye. I'm a trained observer as well.
And you're also smarter than the average bear.
Yeah, I am smarter than the average bear. But let me tell you this. I've got a theory about water. That water in that hosepipe belongs to me.
Yeah.
Because guess what? Water comes from the sky in rain. Nobody should be allowed to own water. Water belongs to all of us, OK? And the water companies make billions of pounds out of wasting water and paying themselves huge dividends. It's my water. You see, I own it because it comes out of the sky.
But why would you snitch? Why would you snitch on people?
Because somebody's using my water.
Yeah, but you're using their water.
No, I'm not using that. I'm using it responsibly. What I'm saying is, right, OK, I've got a very nice car and I've got somebody fortunate I can employ to clean it.
Yeah.
But he cleans it out of buckets. You don't need a hosepipe to clean a car. You're wasting water, wasting the world's resources, but mostly I believe it to be my water.
It
comes out the sky.
You just want to get out there with your binoculars because you can't betray your origins
What
as a
about
journalist.
what about if your neighbours were filling up a little paddling pool for their kids in the hot weather?
I'd go along and stab it.
What, the kids or the paddling pool?
No, the paddling pool. Because you can't do that. You can't waste other resources. Look, I don't believe we're in as big a crisis as everybody's trying to tell us. Again, it's an exaggeration. When it happened in '76, we had a very dry winter.
I remember.
We had a very wet winter.
Summer.
No, a very dry winter preceding the summer. A very dry winter preceding the summer, whereas we had a good wet winter. And summer is getting a bit dry, but we're not in crisis at all. But what I'm saying is, it's only neighbourly not to overuse. If I see Paul...
I just want to know, where do you live?
Stockbroker Belt, sorry.
Good.
OK, is that all? But you don't...
Quite a long way from me.
Yeah. What I don't like is the vanity of people. By the way, I have, as a gesture of my solidarity to saving water, had all the plants removed from my roof garden at my penthouse. I've had the gardener come and take them all away.
Well, that's pretty miserable, isn't it?
No, I don't have to
water
water
them. Must look like the Sahara Desert.
Well, it's a wasteland now. I had them all taken away.
I've got the... What are those things called when the hoses go up to your flower bed so you don't even have to do it yourself? No, when it's like
a little irrigation system.
I've got that.
Yeah, well, he's a bit irritated to hear that. I don't know, Linda, because I think it's like, briefly, it's like communism. It's like Stasi Germany.
No, it's not. Yeah,
where
I don't like it.
Where the totalitarian regime gets the public to attack
but
each
Mark,
other
when you turn on your
and
tap
shop each other.
and only brown sludge comes out, you'll change your mind, believe me.
All right,
it's something
well,
we should all have great social responsibility for.
In fairness, Mike Parry does have a great track record of not wasting water. In fact, when he's thirsty, he only drinks beer.
Or Pinot Grigio.
Pinot Grigio. Chardonnay. Anything with a drop of booze in it. It's time now for this. OK, it's time now for the papers. At 10:30 every Friday, Saturday and Sunday, we bring in the papers hot off the press. I'm going to read all of the headlines, and after that, I will go straight to panel reaction. The I weekend, Chancellor and PM missing as Britain drifts into recession. FT weekend, Truss insists on tax cuts instead of handouts to help households. Also, rare vintage wines pass the sniff test as investors seek hedges against inflation. The Daily Star, Professor fools the world with pick of new planets, but it's just a slice of chorizo. The headline, Star Trick. That's right, a batty boffin has hoodwinked Twitter by posting a snap of a delicious Spanish chorizo sausage, claiming it's a planet. Next up, The Times. Winter of woe means long wait for patients. Only 6 in 10 will be seen within 4 hours. The Daily Telegraph next. NHS 111 crippled by cyber attack. Days of disruption predicted as staff are forced to resort to pens and paper. And Liz Truss wins the Telegraph Readers' Poll in the race for number 10. The Daily Mail now. Reckless cyclists face jail crackdown. We'll discuss that very shortly. Killer cyclists face tougher jail sentences under a crackdown proposed by the Transport Secretary, Grant Shapps, who wants to close an archaic legal loophole, which means riders on bikes who kill pedestrians can be jailed only for a maximum of 2 years. China cuts ties with the US amid anger over Nancy Pelosi. Relations between the world's 2 largest economies plummeted into further uncertainty yesterday as China cut ties with the US on a range of critical issues, from talks on the climate crisis to dialogue between their militaries after a visit to Taiwan this week by the US House Speaker and possibly the most stupid woman in the world, Nancy Pelosi. Daily Express now. Secret papers reveal Putin quizzed our security chiefs. And the saddest goodbye. Life support for tragic Archie to be turned off tomorrow, family told. Archie Battersbee's distraught family prepared to say their final goodbyes last night as they desperately battled to keep him alive. But they have lost that battle. And it's a really, really sad story. We cannot imagine what they're going through right now. And that poor little lad. What a desperate situation. And last but not least, The Independent. Chinese warplanes crossed Taiwan Strait. Well done, Nancy. And banks' recession warning feared too optimistic. This is bad news for Mike Parry. Britons face an even bigger hit to living standards than the Bank of England predicts. As Russia further threatens gas supplies, according to economists, experts said even the bank's most pessimistic scenario did not take into account the risk that gas prices will rise higher.
Everybody knows that.
We know that, but actually the point is that the cost of oil and gas has actually come down in recent weeks, Mike.
It has, and we only take 5% of our gas from Russia. I know people say, oh, well, but on the world spot market it'll all go up in price, but we're not dependent on it. We've got supplies coming from Norway, we've got Qatar, thank you, the Middle East and all that kind of stuff. So, again, this is another gloomy, pessimistic. We've got to be more optimistic about it because we can talk ourselves into a recession if we're going to listen to Mr Bailey and all his doom-mongering. I would rather we got uplifted.
I don't think you can talk yourself into a recession.
I think you can. I think you can.
I think we'll be in a recession and we have to talk ourselves out of it.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Be positive.
Doesn't Mike Parry raise a good point, though, Linda? Yeah. That isn't this the template of Project Fear, which we saw around Brexit, we saw around the pandemic, we're seeing around climate change, and now we've got it about recession.
Yeah, but it is just more than talk. And I go back to what I said earlier about the pandemic, the dual things of the pandemic and the actual Ukraine war. I mean, there's nothing you can do about the port of Shanghai closing for months on end. That has led to a quadrupling in the price of shipping something around the world. There's nothing you can do about the war in Ukraine, and there's nothing you can do about the after effects of the pandemic and lockdowns. Those aren't things that are made up.
No, man is very versatile. We've had these problems before. You then have to make other arrangements. They are now getting grain out of the Ukraine by rivers rather than through Donetsk. And that's because you've got to... You know, we've got a problem. You've got to solve the problem. Solve it. You know, if you can't bring it out of Odessa, bring it out somewhere else. Put it on the rivers.
I agree that we can be inventive. And when I was a correspondent in China, I remember there is a character for crisis, and it's made up of two words, two components, danger and opportunity. So I see that there is always an opportunity in a dangerous situation. But we are living in perilous, difficult times. This is an unusual combination of challenges.
I agree.
So I think we'll go into recession.
That was the Second World War.
Yeah, well, that's right. It's like the Second World War.
That's what I'm saying. And eventually, again, you haven't got much time. You come out of it, you've got to be, as you quite rightly say, more inventive. You've got to be brave and bold and attack the problem rather than letting the problem attack you.
But you've got to go into it in the first place in order to get out the other side. That's all I'm saying.
But does brave and bold, does that overcome the insuperable obstacle of Vladimir Putin?
Really?
Well, Vladimir Putin is a one-off because we know now he's not going to be toppled from within, don't we?
Yeah.
We know that he's surrounded himself with such people he can't get off. That gives everybody the opportunity now to readjust their tactics. We all thought that either somebody would knock him off or he'd die of cancer or something like that. Apparently, he's not got terminal illness. Nobody's going to knock him off inside Russia. Therefore,
it's a worry.
Change tactics.
And as you said, the other big worry is, why did Nancy Pelosi go to Taiwan?
Well, I'm glad she did.
We've got a photograph on the front page, Jake, if you'll oblige us, a photograph on the front page there of the independent newspaper.
Yeah.
And there it is. This is the Chinese now. Flying their warplanes across the Taiwan Straits.
Yes.
Because what old Nancy has done, Linda, is she says poke the hornet's nest needlessly.
Yeah, but that's the point. I don't know why she did it. I agree that she should... I mean, America has had this strategic ambiguity sort of policy for a while in its treatment of Beijing and its treatment of Taiwan.
Definitely.
And they've held the balance.
They don't recognise Taiwan as an independent country.
No, they do, but
they recognise their democracy.
They recognise their democracy and they recognise its importance.
Yeah.
But they recognise that China is the state.
Yes.
And they've held that level for a while. What I don't understand is why did Nancy Pelosi go and kick the hornets? What was the point?
I think it's quite obvious. American intelligence realised that they're going to start these exercises. China are going to start these exercises in the wake of what's happened in Ukraine. She said, I'm going to go. China then heard she was coming and said, you shouldn't come. At which point she said, no, I'm definitely going to go. Because she wasn't going to not go because the Chinese told her not to go to Taiwan.
But they did the exercises in retaliation.
No, the exercises were planned. This is the point that people understand. The exercises were planned. You don't just do exercises because she's there. It takes months of planning to fire missiles over Taiwan into the Japanese Sea. And that was all already planned. The Americans got wind of it and she said, I'm going to go and rattle their cage. And I think she should have done because the Chinese are looking at Taiwan in the same way that Putin looked at Ukraine, and I'm glad she went. So the Americans were giving her a message saying, you mess with Taiwan, you're messing with the United States.
The Democratic Party, are they intent on World War III? Because President Joe Biden 3 months ago accidentally said that he wants regime change in Russia, which was then swiftly denied by his own White House. Now you've got Nancy Pelosi winding up China.
And
what is this White House up to?
Well,
Donald Trump was a far from perfect human being, but he was probably the most peaceful president since the Second World War.
I don't think Ukraine would have happened if Donald Trump was still in the White House. I don't think Putin would have had the nerve to do it. I think Putin would have, Donald Trump would have sent aircraft carriers into the Black Sea and all this kind of stuff. But also, the other problem that old Biden's made is that pulled out of Afghanistan because it's safe now. And then a couple of months later, sends that missile into Afghanistan to kill the man they've been looking for 25 years, who organised the Twin Tower massacre.
Well, I agree with you, Linda, that I just don't understand American foreign policy. But based upon the botched departure from Afghanistan, I'm not optimistic that they're getting this right.
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, I think US-China relations have been deteriorating since 2016 when the Americans actually closed down the Chinese consulate in Houston.
Yeah.
And since then, it's got worse and worse. And that was for spying. I mean, it's sometimes called spycraft in diplomatic circles. But it was spying. And that relationship has been deteriorating. This is under Trump. It's been deteriorating all the way along the line. I know that Nancy Pelosi has been an admirer of democracy for many, many years. She was in Tiananmen Square in 1992, just after the protests in 1989.
Yeah.
And she wants to fly the banner of freedom and democracy. Well, bully for her.
Yeah, well,
What
she's
is
she's a
achieving?
multi-millionaire. She's probably got investments in Taiwan. She's checking out her share price. Listen, Nicola, an interesting story that we've been trailing in the course of the programme in the Daily Mail. Reckless cyclists face jail crackdown. If somebody on a bicycle kills a pedestrian, they get a maximum of 2 years in prison. And the Transport Secretary, Grant Shapps, said you should actually be treated the same as a killer driver behind the wheel of a car. What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, a car is a much more dangerous vehicle to be driving. We'll all be, you know, we all agree on that. But if you kill someone for reckless driving, for doing anything reckless, surely you've got to be treated the same way. I'm really shocked that this is even a thing, wasn't aware of it. You know, if you had a member of your family killed by a cyclist or a car, you'd still feel the same. You'd want them punished the same. I'm just shocked that's even a thing.
And bicycles, I mean, some cyclists go very fast.
I do. On pavements.
Yeah.
Twice in the last week, I've felt the wind of the cyclist in my ear as it shot past me from behind and shouted after there were two blokes, you know, it was a male each time, and I got really angry and shouted because I came within a whisker of being hurt by that bike or that bike running into me, you know, and it was on a pavement. I mean, for goodness sake, one of the biggest arguments in this country is how many roads are going to be turned into cycle lanes, and they still cycle around on pavements.
And they jump the red lights.
They do.
Also, Michael, many of these bikes now are electric, and they are really fast.
They whiz along at 30 miles an hour.
Yeah.
They're lethal. That's as lethal as a car, isn't it, that's going at 30 miles an hour? And I would say probably more lethal because they're so specific. They're like a bullet rather than a broad beam sort of vehicle.
Well, they got more torque than your Mercedes, haven't they? You know, they've got this instant power.
No, I wouldn't say that, mate. No, not if you saw me going down the A3 at 5:30 in the morning.
But you've got an old Merc, haven't you? It's an old model, didn't you?
No, mate.
I think you bought an outgoing model, I think.
No, I didn't, believe me. It's got two seats, it's a fastback, and it moves faster than the speed of light.
Is it? Well, what sort of colour are we looking at? What does Mike Parry go for?
I call it silver blue. It's metallic silver blue.
And you're the silver fox. Silver fox in a silver blue Merc.
You can take me out on a date.
Well,
you two get a room.
I'm going to say it's a bit more exclusive than that, Linda.
Linda, can we talk about this most awful story, which is Archie Battersbee? Her mother has lost her legal fight to keep the life support going, and it seems like the family will say goodbye tomorrow.
It's such a shocking story. I mean, it's the worst, almost the worst possible thing that can happen to any parent. But the tragedy is, I think, that it ever got into a courtroom. I mean, I know that a certain tiny percentage always end up in court every year. But surely there could have been some way of mediating and keeping it out of court. Because I just think it's incredibly sad that now both sides of the equation, both the doctors and the family, are absolutely at daggers drawn. And that's terrible in a situation that demands or should demand compassion.
Well, Nicola, I'm not one to take sides in a horrific story like this because I can't put my feet in the shoes of Holly Dance, of course, Archie's mummy. And I've watched her on this channel and heard her on the radio, and she's a woman of amazing courage and conviction. And, you know, she's fighting for her son, really. But there is the flip side, which is that medics consider it cruel that we're keeping him alive. I mean, what's your view?
I mean, you know, it's hard to take your mum hat off because, you know, as a mum, I'd be doing the same, wouldn't I? I'd be doing the same. But as... you know, standing back and watching it, you know, the medics are saying it's cruel and he is being kept alive from from what I can see. There isn't going to be any chance of once.
Nicola, I don't think you would do the same.
Do you not?
You know, I think I know you well enough to think that you'd be more practical, more logical. And what quality of existence is that little boy having after all the top medical brains have said he is clinically dead? So.
They sometimes get it wrong, though, don't they, Michael? What if it was?
Not with this.
Not with this.
No.
And you know, I don't like seeing the pictures. For him, I don't like.
Exactly.
You know, I don't like.
So undignified, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so sad. I feel so terribly sorry for his family and for him. It's horrific.
We've obviously touched on the recession. It's everywhere. You've got the independent banks. Recession fears are too optimistic, according to the Independent, although they can be rather pessimistic themselves as a paper and rather critical of the government. A quick one in the weekend. Chancellor and PM missing as Britain drifts into recession. The Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, remember him, and, of course, the Chancellor, Nadhim Zahawi, Nicola, are on holiday. Do politicians have the right to take a holiday at a time of national crisis?
If I was Boris Johnson, I'd have gone on holiday, I think. Why not? I mean,
I perfectly accept what you're saying. He said, he don't want me anymore now, and so... And he's not...
But also, aren't you finding, Michael, these stories tedious? When anything happens, and they say, where's the Prime Minister? It's the hardest job in the country.
Yeah, I agree. He's a dead duck Prime Minister now. He can't influence any policy anyway. No. So he might as well get off the stage and let somebody else get on with it. There should be a better political system.
Michael, I want any Prime Minister to get a proper holiday in the summer so that they rest and refresh, recharge their batteries so that they can run the country well.
No politician. I mean, look, I've run news organisations. You don't ever switch off and go on holiday, particularly these days when you've got a mobile phone, a laptop and all that.
By the way, did you get a bounce in circulation when you were in charge?
Oh, always. Every newspaper I've left, circulation's dipped as soon as I've left it. Every radio station I've left, listenership gone down as soon as I left.
Well, do you know something? Full disclosure, we get a bump every time you're on, but I won't say which direction.
Which direction it's in. By the way, haven't I seen a picture today of Boris Johnson with police officers in Downing Street saying, you're 13,244 recruit that I've brought in. I don't know why they're saying this on. I've seen him in Downing Street pictures today, haven't we?
Yeah. And also, Keir Starmer's on holiday at the moment as well. I think he's allowed a break as well. Do you not find this rather petty of the media when they say, why is so-and-so on holiday?
Well, Mrs Thatcher would never
I don't know. See, I come from the same background as Mike, and you really didn't take holidays much, did you?
Well, if you did, your job wasn't there when you came back.
That's right. But don't you think you can work from anywhere now?
Yes, you can.
So, it's different now.
I think that's right. And a Prime Minister is always at the end of a phone line.
Exactly. So I think it's different. They're not just
Mrs Thatcher thought people who took holidays were wimps.
Yeah.
They were bounced out the government if they took a day off, you know what I mean, for their child's birthday or something.
Well, lots more to come because we've got more from the papers, including a fascinating debate. What's the right age at which to chuck your kids out of the marital bed? Should they ever be in there in the first place? Plus, another topical game show. Can you recognise the celebrity from their nickname? Lots to get through. See you shortly.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know. The latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
That's absolutely right.
What a thoughtful email from Marisa, who says, "Hello, Mark. Another most interesting programme. Thank you. I understand the problems with the use of garden water, but do we have to let our gardens of a lifetime die in a short space of time? It would be a real tragedy. I do not think that spying on the neighbours is a good principle. We have to carry on living with them afterwards. I shall not be doing it. I wish everyone a good weekend." Well, we wish you a good weekend as well in your gorgeous garden, Marisa. I'm sure it's absolutely lovely. How about some more emails? Well, let's do that in just a moment, because we've got some more stories from the papers and we'll get full panel reaction in the company of Linda Duberly and Mike Porky Parry and Nicola McLean. Actress Alicia Silverstone has hit back at haters who are criticising her for allowing her 11-year-old son to sleep in her bed. He's 11 and he still sleeps in her marital bed. So what do we think? When is the right age at which to chuck your kids out of the bed? Nicola?
Well, first of all, I absolutely hate people making judgments on other people's parenting. I really, really do, because if people tried to do it to me, it would not go down very well.
No.
For me, I never had my kids in my bed, ever. From word go, it was just my rule. I think there's loads of things that makes your life harder. So, you know, the reason why he's probably still in her bed when he's 11 is because it's too hard to get them out when you've sort of made that rule, isn't it? It's like, so I just never did it. But when Tom's away, when my 12-year-old wants to come in to watch a movie and, you know, have a sleepover, no problem. But he knows full well that as soon as Dad's home, he's out. So, yeah, I just personally didn't do it. It wasn't something that I wanted to do. I just had a little Moses basket.
Well, I don't want to be indiscreet, Linda, although that ship may have passed a few years ago. But I don't think it's great for the marriage, is it? Babies in the bed?
No, I'm old-fashioned about this. It's bad for marriages.
For obvious reasons?
For obvious reasons. I don't like anyone in my bed, to be honest. And
least of all a man.
Least of all a man, indeed.
Yeah.
But I never
You're certainly
did...
not getting in my murk, if that's the...
You say that now. You say that
Try
now.
lying down in that thing. It's a fastback.
But I think that...
Full leather upholstery.
I think it's
white, clean finish.
It's a bad idea, yeah. And my mum was very strict about imposing this kind of routine when I had my first child. She said it's a really bad idea, and I took her advice, and it
Michael,
was a bad idea.
can you remember when you were excavated from the family bed?
No. See, I've never had children, so I've never had it as a parent. But as a kid, I mean, you know, it was post-war. My father was in the Royal Navy during the war. And I can't remember ever even being in my parents' bedroom, let alone their bed. Seriously, I mean...
Well, look, thank God...
It wasn't very, you know, cuddly...
No, it wasn't that
days.
time. Thank God that the Parrys did get their conjugal rights going, because that's why Mike Parry is with us now. And it's time to finish off the show with our Great British Game Show. Poor old Richard Madeley, of whom I'm a huge fan, referred to the England striker who's called Chloe as Coco, which is his nickname for his own daughter, Chloe Kelly. He called her Coco. So we're going to play a game of celebrity nicknames. Can you name the celebrity from their nickname? First of all, old Beckham, what's his nickname?
Golden Balls.
Well done. Our next celebrity, he is Phil Tufnell. What's his nickname?
Tuffers.
Or the Cat.
Oh, the Cat, you're right.
Otto von Bismarck.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
The Iron Chancellor.
The Iron Duke, wasn't it?
Rodney, the Iron Duke. Well done, extra point.
Yeah.
Rodney Trotter. What did Trigger call him?
Trigger called him David.
Always called him Dave.
Yeah.
Kanye West?
Kanye West.
Yes, well done. He's called Yee. Elton John's nickname, given to him by Rod Stewart.
Phyllis.
Well done. Actually, it's Sharon.
Sharon
Rod
Phyllis.
Stewart is Phyllis.
That's right.
Well
Sharon
done.
Phyllis, yeah.
How about Miley Cyrus? It's called Smiley.
Smiley.
And Phil the Power Taylor. What a nickname. Prince Andrew, Randy Andy, and a lot of other X-rated things. Thank you for your company. Thanks for my amazing panel. I'll see you tomorrow at 9. Next up, it's Headliners, and I'm in charge, so do stick around.
Good evening. Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update. This weekend won't bring much rain. Many places seeing blue sky and sunny spells, and after a bit of a fresh start, temperatures will be on the increase as we go into next week, all because of this large area of high pressure that's slowly moving in. Notice, however, there is a weather front approaching the northwest, and that will bring some rain tomorrow. A few showers around this evening, still across the far northeast of Scotland, northeast England, but they're fading away. For most, it's a dry night and a clear night. But here comes that weather front, introducing more cloud across the Highlands and the Western Isles, and by dawn, a little bit of rain as well. It's going to be a bit of a fresh night, quite cool out there this evening, and temperatures dropping by dawn quite widely to single figures. Those temperatures soon on the rise, though, tomorrow with the help of some August sunshine. Plenty of that for England and Wales. Quite a grey start, though, for Scotland and Northern Ireland. We'll see some outbreaks of rain working from west to east across Scotland, staying fairly damp across the far north, but I suspect central and eastern Scotland will brighten up later on. Just a few showers for Northern Ireland. But in the sunny spells across the south, temperatures in the low to mid-20s. Feeling pretty pleasant in that sunshine, but if you're after rain, it isn't good news because it's staying dry across the south through Saturday night and through Sunday. We will keep outbreaks of rain going over the Highlands and the Western Isles and staying fairly breezy here as well. Into Sunday, and it's a very similar story actually. Probably a drier, brighter day across eastern Scotland. The west coast staying fairly cloudy with outbreaks of rain. Again, Northern Ireland probably dry but fairly cloudy. Sunny spells across most of England and Wales, and that will lift the temperatures a little higher on Sunday, more widely over 20 Celsius, perhaps up to 26 or 27 across the southeast. Again, cooler across the